Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Back here with the show with you here on the Thursday. Larry Smith, producer Tony, editor Josh as well. We are Sports IQ. Glad you're with us here. Another great show coming up here. In just a couple of minutes, we'll talk with Scott Pianowski. Little fantasy football. Some of you probably, if you haven't already, usually you kind of wait till after this weekend. Probably in the next several days, you'll be getting together for a little fantasy football draft. He's going to talk about that. Great guy to break down maybe who you should take or maybe some sleepers out there. We'll talk with that. Producer Tony's going to talk with him in a minute because producer Tony loves fantasy football. Don't tell him I told you this. Just between you and me. He's not listening or anything. He left the room. Don't tell him that he loves fantasy football. I mean, this guy is, when we worked together at CNN back in the day, he's the guy who organized the fantasy football stuff. And if memory serves me correctly, I think he even organized like multiple. Like if you didn't like this version, okay, then we'll do this version. I mean, they got really into it, and he was the godfather of fantasy football. So listen, he's going to do the interview with Scott because he loves this stuff. Okay, that's coming up. Also, Wyatt Thompson, voice of the K-State Wildcats, joining us a bit later on in the show as we get ready for college football. And we continue counting down the top 25 in the preseason. We are through 10. We'll do 9 and 8 today as we like Case and Case used to say, count them down to number 1. Anyway, so there we go. Listen, let's talk a couple of headlines to get to you before we talk to Scott. I don't know if we probably at some point have led our show with WNBA. It didn't happen very often, but listen, this deserves it. There was only one game last night, and if you're not watching the WNBA right now, you need to just check it out because crazy things are happening. Paige Bueckers is the story. Let me just first tell you, Kelsey Plum banked in the winning shot just before the buzzer as the Sparks beat Dallas 81-80, and it spoiled the night for Paige Bueckers, who had a career high, the rookie, 44-point game, the most scored by a player in a game in the WNBA this season. It tied Cynthia Cooper's 28-year-old record for most points in a game by a first-year player. That is some former MVP. That is some high praise. The 40 note for her. In fact, Bueckers scored Dallas's final 13 points. The last was on a technical free throw with 103 left to give Dallas an 80-79 win. But the Wings turned it over after winning the ensuing jump ball. Isaiah James missed a corner three-pointer, about 20 seconds left to give Los Angeles a final shot. And then Kelsey Plum came on. We're going to talk, by the way, with Lo Yarnell of Yahoo Sports tomorrow. Talk more about that performance. We'll talk more about some other players as well. Kelsey Plum, she's just been outstanding. Asia Wilson, what's up with Caitlin, the feast, all the injuries. Anyway, it was just a crazy night in the WNBA. Paige Bueckers, 44 points. If she was not already the rookie of the year, I think you can begin to go ahead and just say, let's go ahead and let's save yourself some time. When you've got some time the next few weeks, go ahead and just engrave that nameplate because I think there's no question what she's done. Pretty cool. Final week of the NFL preseason kicks off tonight. Steelers and Panthers in Carolina. Patriots and New York Giants in Jersey. Speaking of New York, the Jets made a couple of moves yesterday to solidify their defensive line. They picked up seventh-year defensive tackle Harrison Phillips from Minnesota. The former Bills draft pick has been a key cog in Minnesota the last 3 seasons, especially on first and second down against the run. They also picked up Juwan Briggs from the Browns. Briggs, in just his second year, he saw limited duty in Cleveland last year. The Chiefs dealing one of their wideouts to the 49ers. According to reports, Sky Moore is headed to the Bay Area. The Niners running low on bodies right now at wideout. Demarcus Robinson suspended by the league for 3 games to start the season for violating the substance abuse policy. Meanwhile, Brandon Ayuk is recovering from the knee injury that ended his year last year prematurely. Juwan Jennings dealing with a calf injury. Also says he wants to be traded if the team won't redo his contract. Final year, I think he's getting paid like $7.7 million, I think. The Ravens with some dreadful news. Lamar Jackson leaving practice after 40 minutes when his foot was stepped on and he went down during a scrimmage play. The team says that Jackson will be fine and will be back at practice today. So that's a good thing because you lose Lamar Jackson, you lose your season. in Baltimore, at least the season that you think you may have. Okay, those are some quick headlines right now. Producer Tony is with our first guest.
All right, thanks, Larry. And, everybody is getting ready for football season. And, of course, that means the fantasy players are also getting ready for football season. Scott Pianowski is joining us. He is a fantasy football expert with Yahoo Sports. Scott, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure to be here.
So, Scott, let's dive into a little bit of the fantasy football world. Your thoughts: quarterback, running back, wide receiver. What position brings the most value to you?
The most important thing to reconcile as a fantasy football player in the real life NFL, it's all about the quarterback. It's if you don't have a quarterback, you can't sleep at night. You'd be like Cam Ward, who had a great season in college, but wasn't seen as some generational prospect. He has to be the number one pick. The Titans don't have a quarterback. In fantasy football, it's really about filling those running back and wide receiver slots. Now, 15, 20 years ago, when fantasy football was first picking up steam, the first round would be almost entirely running backs. They dominated the position. And we've seen as the league has become more pass friendly, receivers have started to take over a little bit of that real estate. Jamar Chase would be the consensus number one pick in most leagues. But there was a renaissance of running backs last year. A lot of really good running backs went to better teams. Derrick Henry to the Ravens, Saquon Barkley to the Eagles, Josh Jacobs to the Raiders, older running backs who all had great seasons. The position was relatively injury-free last year. So what does this all mean? Your first round is probably going to be maybe 4 or 5 running backs, maybe 5 or 6 receivers, something like that. And we won't see as great as Lamar Jackson is, as great as Josh Allen is. They will be second or third round picks in most leagues because fantasy football is about filling the running back and receiver spots first.
Oh, that's interesting. I always see that's why I've never done well in fantasy football, because I always go after a quarterback. And I usually have the issue of going after my favorite players. You really need to divest yourself, right? You can't pick your favorites. You can't pick for teams you root for normally. You've got to be more analytical than that, right? To be a successful fantasy football player.
It's like anything. If you're a poker player, if you wanted to have fun by playing every hand, it might be a good couple of hours. But if you wanted to do your best financially, you'd probably need to make more difficult decisions at the table and be, you think it's what's the old idea that you want to you root with your heart but bet with your head, right? If you're going to follow your favorite team, that's not the worst thing in the world. If your favorite team is the Ravens, if your favorite team is the Lions, who have a loaded offense, even though they lost their coordinator in Ben Johnson. But if your favorite team is the Cleveland Browns, it may be a good idea to skip them for fantasy. It's going to be a mix. I don't have a problem with selecting players that you like. You want to do it in context. There's something called ADP, average draft position. If you like a favorite player, you want to target him, but take him relatively similar to what his ADP is. I'll sign off on that.
Is there in the NFL, they have their charts for trades, right? A draft pick is worth this many points. A player is worth this many points. Is there something like that in fantasy football that you guys use to judge a good trade versus a bad trade when you're trying to work out a deal with folks?
Yeah, I have seen charts like that, and they are similar to the famous, I think Jimmy Johnson popularized them in the NFL, but a lot of it is feel too. And, ultimately fantasy comes down to my opinion against your opinion. I think this player is better than you do. You think that player is better than I do. Obviously, trading comes into that. Sometimes in keeper leagues, you might be trading draft picks. You might be trading futures, where in a season-long league that's contained in just one season, those things don't exist. So there are charts to guide you, but a lot of it's going to be feel. A lot of it's going to be gut feeling. Wayne Gretzky famously said, "We skate to where the puck is headed, not to where the puck has been." I would think that ethos would serve you well in fantasy football as well.
Are there any rookies out there that you've got your eye on that you are going to try to pick up maybe in later rounds in your draft? Because a lot of times you're taking established guys right off the top of a fantasy draft, would you say?
Yeah, although rookies, rookie running backs have always been a hot prospect. And we've seen, this is about a 10-year-old trend. I go back to 2014 where the Mike Evans class, the Odell Beckham class kind of took the league by storm. Usually it used to be you ignore the rookie receivers and, geez, you wouldn't go near a rookie tight end. That's changing too. Sam Laporta was really good 2 years ago. And then Brock Bowers had a bang-up season last year for the Raiders. So some of the hot rookies, the hotter rookies will go in maybe the 4th, 5th, 6th round. We've seen Travion Henderson had a really good camp with the Patriots, was making splash plays in the preseason games. He'll probably be their number one running back. Remember, Josh McDaniels now helming their offense. Drake May was a rookie quarterback last year. And by the way, talk about rookies. Jaden Daniels was fabulous last year. One of the right answers for fantasy in 2024. I like Henderson in New England. Ted McMillan leaves his number 8 overall pick, goes to Carolina, an offense that had an uptick in the final third of the season. Bryce Young starting to play better football. Dave Canales looks like the right person there. Chuba Hubbard was a good running back for them last season. McMillan will immediately step in as their number 1 receiver and has become a hot fantasy commodity. When Sean Payton shows interest in a skilled player, we pay interest in that player as well. RJ Harvey was drafted in the 2nd round, ostensibly to be the Denver feature back, but since then they've added veteran J.K. Dobbins. They'll both be splitting time in the Denver backfield. I think by midseason, maybe Harvey takes over. He's been coveted as a draft pick this season. So there's a handful of guys. And then we also see it's not unusual. It used to be a running back in the 4th round, 5th round, 6th round, the NFL draft. We would ignore those guys. I mean, Bucky Irving, I believe, was a 5th round pick last year. He had a great season with Tampa Bay. So we're more open-minded. Isaiah Pacheco was a 7th round pick for the Chiefs. He popped a few years ago. We're more open-minded to anybody who gets drafted in the NFL draft who plays running back. It doesn't matter if you're a 5th, 6th, or 7th round pick. You could conceivably have fantasy value. Maybe 10 years ago, we never would have said that.
So when you're looking at this year's, you're getting ready to draft your team and you're looking for certain things. You said it might be wide receiver, running back going early. Who is a player that you really want to have on your team? Who do you think is going to have that superstar year this year? Have you thought that far ahead?
Oh, for sure. When you're a fantasy analyst, it's all you're thinking about. What I'm trying to do is I want to get at least one running back I can hang my hat on. He could be a 1st round pick in my draft. He could be a 2nd round pick in my draft, but I want to make sure at least I have one guy. And a player I'm circling, I'm going to have an early pick to get him, but I like to be young at the running back position. I like players who I say are on the escalator. Maybe they haven't had their best season yet, because to a newer fantasy player, he might say, how can Saquon Barkley not be your number 1 pick? He had just a tremendous season for the Eagles. Well, he had 482 touches if you factor in the playoffs, and he's getting up there in age. He's probably in the back 9 of his career. I want to be younger at the position. So this leads to Bijan Robinson, 3rd season in Atlanta. Over the last 10 weeks of last year, he was the number 2 running back in fantasy football. Ascending offense. Michael Penix takes over at quarterback. Zach Robinson, his 2nd year at coordinator. I don't think the Falcons defense will be particularly good. So I think a lot of shootouts will happen when the Atlanta schedule. They play an indoor schedule, which can be fantasy friendly. Robinson's a player I would like to land. Jahmyr Gibbs last year, 20 touchdowns, shares with David Montgomery. I know they lost Ben Johnson. They lost Frank Ragnow, their star center. But again, a player on the escalator. Maybe Gibbs hasn't had his best season yet. If I get an early pick, a Robinson, a Gibbs would look really good. Now, if I don't get an early pick and those guys are gone, I'd probably go to a receiver. Amon-Ra St. Brown, a very reliable slot guy in Detroit, catch 100 passes every year. Nico Collins, uncoverable in Houston. And then my 2nd pick would almost certainly be a running back. You think about how you build your roster. Josh Jacobs in Green Bay would be a good target. Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis. I think with Daniel Jones getting the assignment there, starting quarterback, it's probably better for he's not a great player, but Anthony Richardson just looked overmatched in the NFL. I think the Jones appointment is good for all the Colts. So if I don't get a running back in the 1st round, a Jacobs in Green Bay, a Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis would fill that position nicely in the 2nd round. Even Derrick Henry might slip to the 2nd round in some leagues. He won't catch a lot of passes, but man, does he score a bunch of touchdowns. And his 1st year in Baltimore, 5.9 yards per carry. You got to love that.
Are there any players out there right now that, like you talked about, Saquon Barkley had all those touches, but obviously he's still going to go high in a lot of people's drafts. Mm-hmm. Are there any players that you are just like staying away from, that you don't have any confidence in for this coming season, that you just think are not going to have it?
Yeah, for sure. A player that really worries me is Tyreek Hill in Miami. After week 1 last season, Tyreek Hill, one of the all-time great deep threats, probably on a Hall of Fame trajectory. He did not have a 30-yard catch after the first week of the season. That showed the offensive line wasn't playing well. Obviously, Tua Tagovailoa had some concussion problems, and when he came back, they wanted to get the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible. And then after the season, it sounded like Tyreek Hill wanted to get out of Miami as quickly as possible. He's since walked that back, but I don't know how invested he is in this team emotionally. Into his 30s now, where regression often kicks in, still commanding 3rd round draft capital in fantasy drafts. He's somebody I'm just hard pass. I'm going to avoid Tyreek Hill. And again, the Gretzky, we're skating where the puck is headed, not where it's been. Tyreek Hill's had a great career, but I think last year what showed the breaks in those cracks, the cracks in the foundation, I think those problems are still there. Puka Nacua will command a first-round pick or maybe a second-round pick in a lot of leagues, but he doesn't score touchdowns. Just 3 last year, only 1 inside the 10-yard line. They've since added Devontae Adams, who's a heavy touchdown guy. Matthew Stafford, their quarterback, is 37. He's got a bad back, hasn't done a lot this summer. I think Nacua is mispriced. They say that in fantasy, there's a price for everybody. I mean, I guess if Tyreek Hill slipped a couple of rounds past expectation, maybe I'd consider him. Maybe if Nacua slipped a little bit, I'd consider him. But right now, at cost, hard pass on Hill, hard pass on Nacua. I'm also worried about Tampa Bay. Now, Baker Mayfield just had a career season, resurrected his career 2 years ago. Last year, he throws for 41 touchdowns. But the architect of that offense, Liam Cohen, he's gone to Jacksonville. Sounds like Chris Godwin, one of their star receivers, won't be ready to begin the season. They do have Egbuka, another rookie who's really interesting. I think he'll be a good pick. But Baker Mayfield will probably have a nice season, but he's going to have a regression season too. He's never going to throw those 41 touchdowns again. And at quarterback, there's so many right answers. You can wait. I mentioned Drake May in passing. He could be a good sleeper pick. Maybe Caleb Williams will click with Ben Johnson in Chicago. I think that might take a little time because Minnesota has a tough schedule. I'm sorry, Chicago has a tough schedule in week 1. Minnesota is the week 1 opponent. But you can do well at any quarterback price point. I'm not going to force it. That's why I probably won't draft Baker Mayfield in 25.
So if you're looking at draft time, obviously a lot of leagues also use defense. You pick a defense to have on your league, and you also have kickers on your league. Where do you rate those players and those combinations of players? Is that something you just wait till like the 6th or 7th, 8th round of your draft and try to pick them up then as cheap as possible?
Oh, you'll wait to the last round of your draft to take those positions, usually the last couple of rounds. And some people might not even draft them at all in the summer. The idea is just take another player, hope to get lucky if news breaks right. And then before the season, what a lot of people will do is they'll stream their kicker or they'll stream their defense. What does that mean? It's like the wire with the cell phones. You just keep it for a short time and then you replace them. You just look for a good matchup and then you move on. And when I take start sit questions for Yahoo, we do that over on Twitter X every Sunday. Mostly they're about the field players, but I get asked kicker questions. I get asked defense questions. It's a really simple rule of thumb here. You follow the point spread. You want a team that's favored. You want a team that plays with leverage. The data shows that they're more likely to get kicker points. They're more likely to get defense points. Think of when a football game gets lopsided. What happens in the fourth quarter? The team that's behind will throw every down, and the team that's ahead, their pass rushers can pin their ears back and attack the pocket, try to pick up a sack, a strip, a turnover, something like that. You want to play with leverage. So basically, don't target these guys. Right now, Denver is the consensus ADP #1 defense. And yeah, if you landed them, that would be fine, but don't prioritize it in the draft. Take it if it comes to you late. And if you don't get them, there'll be another one. And then during the season, it's perfectly fine to be short-term with these guys. Just try to find a team that's at home, a team that's favored, a team expected to play with leverage. It won't work out every week. But if you do that for the balance of the fantasy season, you'll come out ahead more often than not.
Let me give you 3 players and tell me who you would take them 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go quarterbacks here because it's always interesting to me. You're left there. You're getting ready to pick, and Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, all on the board, and you've decided to take a quarterback. Give me a 1, 2, 3 of where you're going with those guys.
Yeah, there's considered a top 5 at quarterback. Daniels and Hurts would also be in that group, and so you've listed the right guys. But Jackson and Allen are going to go 1, 2 when quarterbacks get taken in every league. It may be the second round or maybe the third round, but they'll be taken right on top of each other. I prefer Jackson because he just has more help, right? I mean, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman had 9 touchdowns last year. Mark Andrews, their tight end, had 10 touchdowns. Eventually, they'll get Isaiah Likely back, who's an impact player at tight end. I'm not really sure what Buffalo has. Shakir's their slot guy, but he's hurt right now. Keon Coleman was a slow developing rookie last year. They're hoping he'll improve. It's the 3rd season for Dalton Kincaid, their tight end, but he hasn't really popped yet. Obviously, both quarterbacks run a lot, and that's one of the cheat codes in fantasy. Try to get a mobile quarterback if you can. Allen's had 27 rushing touchdowns, I believe it is, the last 2 years. Jackson gets more yardage as a runner, but not as many touchdowns. Because Jackson has more help, he's the #1 quarterback on my board. I would take Allen 2nd. And just to fill out the top 5, I have Daniels 3rd. I have Hurts 4th. Remember, the tush push is coming back for another year. And Burrow 5th, although I do like Joe Burrow a lot. I think Cincinnati will be what I call a fantasy carnival really good offense, really bad defense. If you remember the Baltimore-Cincinnati games last year, they were all like 40-39, 38-37. I don't think anybody will forget those games. A couple of them, I think, were on signature standalone TV too, Thursday night, Monday night. So generally, Cincinnati is a good place to get fantasy production. But if you look at the top of the quarterback board, if you're willing to take a vanity quarterback, as I call them, Jackson, Allen, Daniels, Hurts, and Burrow, my top 5.
Very good. That is all very excellent advice for the fantasy players out there. Scott Pianowski, where can we follow you on social media? So if we got some fantasy listeners, some fantasy followers, where can they go and get this expert advice on a regular basis?
For sure. Love to have you. Scott_Pianowski, Pianowski on Twitter X. And I am Pianow, Pianow on Blue Sky. Spend a lot of time on the social medias. And again, we answer start-sit questions every Sunday, the hour before kickoff. So Yahoo's a great place to play. A lot of new exciting formats coming to Yahoo. They've revamped the app. So if you haven't checked out Yahoo in a while, we hope you play with us this year. But even if you don't, if you want to talk fantasy football or fantasy baseball or really anything about sports, I'm happy to talk to you on social. And it's been great talking to you guys today.
Appreciate it. Scott Pianowski, he is the fantasy football expert for Yahoo Sports. Thank you so much for taking some time out and joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back on Sports IQ after a quick timeout.
Everything is expensive right now. Gas, food, you name it. You're spending more, you are making the same or less money. So, what do? You rack up credit card debt. That's what you do. It's not your fault. It's the economy. And guess what? If you rack up too much credit card debt like some of us, you can't pay your bills. Then the credit card companies, as nice as they are, start hounding you for money. Then you start your downward spiral. A smart thing for you to do is to call the Zero Debt. They can help you consolidate all your credit card bills into one affordable payment. Millions of people have done it. It works to make you debt-free. Make this free call right now. It costs you nothing to learn more.
800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. That's 800-507-7293.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Welcome back here to the show. Great to have that conversation. Didn't I tell you that Tony was really into fantasy football? You could feel the energy through the microphone, the excitement. He was like a 10-year-old kid on Christmas Eve, getting excited. No, I'm just kidding. Tony now can hear me. So anyway, all right. Let's talk a little baseball news before we get to Wyatt Thompson, the voice of the Kansas State Wildcats, joining us here on the show in just a couple of minutes. Some baseball news now. On the diamond last night, the AL Central leading Tigers completing that 3-game sweep of the West leading Astros. Boy, this is big, not just for, being dominant here in mid-August, but getting a win over somebody, a dominant sweep over somebody you might, run into in October, right? 7-2 win last night. Dylan Dingler had a 3-run triple in the sixth run first inning to lead the way for Detroit. The Tigers now have won 7 of 8. Houston has dropped 4 in a row. The Mariners have not been able to make up any ground in the AL West despite the Astros' woes. Seattle also getting swept last night in Philadelphia. The Phillies had a cakewalk 11-2 romp. Trey Turner just had a huge series. 5 hits, a pair of RBIs. Kyle Schwarber, homer, drove in 5 runs. That's homer 45 for him on this season. So Seattle remains a game and a half behind Houston in the AL West. The Phillies lead is now up to 6.5 games in the NL East, as the Mets dropped a 5-4 decision to the Nationals. Josh Bell, homer, drove in 2 runs, and rookie reliever Cole Henry pitched out of a jam in the 6th inning to end New York's 3-game winning streak. The AL East tightening back up. Toronto losing a 2-1 decision to the Pirates. Pittsburgh, Johan Avedo earning his first major league win since having Tommy John surgery back in 2023. Meanwhile, the Yankees got an extra inning road win for the first time this season. 6-4 win over the Rays. Giancarlo Stanton providing the difference with a 2-run blast in the top of the 10th. New York now 4 games behind the Jays in the East. Boston third, 5 games, or 5.5 games, I should say, off the pace. In Chicago, Michael Busch, 3-run double as the Cubs beat the Brewers 4-3 Wednesday night for their 3rd consecutive victory over the NL Central leaders. Hey, the Cubs closing that gap in the Central down to 6 games with this win streak. Some more bad news off the field for the Orioles closer Felix Bautista, who missed most of last year with Tommy John surgery, will now miss the rest of this season and next season due to shoulder surgery. The 30-year-old Bautista has undergone successful surgery to repair a torn rotator cuff and torn labrum in his throwing shoulder. That's what the club announced on Wednesday. So again, just some tough news. Boy, it has been a bad season for Baltimore all the way through. You talk about what we discussed during the preseason, back in spring training, the optimism they had, fire their manager early. That didn't work. They got out of the gates with a slow start and just couldn't make up ground. Tough times in Baltimore. Okay, we've got a quick timeout, and then Wyatt Thompson, the voice of the K-State Wildcats, joins us next.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-215-0341. 800-215-0341. 800-215-0341. That's 800-215-0341.
Attention travelers. Next Tuesday, a major hurricane will cause complete chaos throughout the city. Food, water, and phone service will be in short supply. There will likely be panic citywide. Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Disasters don't plan ahead. You can. Talk to your loved ones about how you're going to be ready in an emergency. Don't wait. Communicate.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Okay, welcome back here to the Sports IQ. Let's continue the conversation. Producer Tony is with our next guest.
All right, here we go. This is Wyatt Thompson. Wyatt, this will air on Thursday before the game. Okay. So we will get started here in 3, 2, and 1. Well, thanks so much, Larry. And we want to go and get a little more information on what is the first real big game of the college football season. It's in Dublin. It's going to be a fantastic ball game. K-State, Iowa State in Dublin. You know, it's been part of the yearly college football scene the last 4 or 5 years, these preseason games. We're lucky enough to be joined by Wyatt Thompson. He is the voice of the K-State Wildcats. Wyatt, thank you so much for taking some time and joining us today.
It is my pleasure, Tony. I've been doing a lot of these and honored to do so. This is a fun thing that we've been working on. It's K-State's home game for about a year. And now here we are finally getting ready to do this thing. And reality is setting in quickly, my friend. No doubt about that.
It should be quite the ball game. It's a great way to kind of kick off the season. I'm sure maybe the K-State coaches and Iowa State coaches would kind of like to ease into things a little bit, but and you're right out of the gate and right out with a big-time conference opponent.
Love the stage, though. ESPN, Week 0, Game 1 in Dublin at Aviva Stadium. I mean, how does it get much better than that? And I think they, being the people with Aer Lingus and the city of Dublin and the country of Ireland, are so excited to have this matchup. They know all about, or at least they seem to know all about, Farmageddon is what they call this little rivalry now. That's kind of grown over the years. We've had games in the snow a couple of years ago here in Manhattan, like a big storm. We had a game at Arrowhead in Kansas City, home of the Chiefs one time, that was decided by a blocked extra point in the waning seconds, winning a game here on the last play of the game in the south end zone. It's been all over the map, but it's great football. And I'm hoping and thinking that we'll have a game somewhat in the vicinity of like that when we get to Dublin on Saturday night.
Have the coaches, have they told you any of the things they want to do other than getting ready for the game? Obviously, a chance to see a place like Dublin, Ireland is pretty special. Have they laid out any plans, anything that they're going to do to have some fun while they're there? I know it's a business trip, but you got to have a little fun with it as well, right?
Yeah, and they have things scheduled on Thursday night and Friday late afternoon and into the evening. Other than that, it's pretty much a business trip, but I've talked to a lot of the players. We've had, I think we had 23 practices from the time camp started till we left for Dublin. And I think it's kind of one of those things where they're going to get to see, like late Friday afternoon into the evening, they're going to get to see quite a bit of Dublin. I think they have 3 or 4 little sites they're going to see, and it'll be quick, but at least they'll get to do it. And for a lot of these young people, it may be the only foreign trip they take in their lifetime. We don't know that. So they're really pumped up about it, no doubt.
That's awesome. That is one of the things that makes college football so special is these kind of games, these kind of trips for these kids who, like you said, some of them may not have ever left the state of Kansas. Who knows? You just don't know what their background is. And a chance to go play in a place like Dublin is pretty special. Looking at the game, one of the things that's interesting for K-State obviously is going to be how Avery Johnson, performs for K-State. His 3rd year now as the starting quarterback. What kind of leap do you think he needs to take to really elevate this K-State program?
It's a great question, and I've been asked that question a lot. I don't know that he has to take a monster leap. I just think he needs to take some steps forward, and I think he's in a position, to be honest, to do that, Tony. He's added 18 pounds of muscle mass since the end of last season. He's now at 200 pounds. He has great skill in spinning it and running it. It's a second year with his quarterbacks coach, Matt Wells, who also will be the offensive coordinator. And that was not the case a year ago. And I think he will benefit from that. He and Matt are on the same page on a lot of things. Coach Wells is smart. He's been a head coach at Utah State. He's been a head coach at Texas Tech. He, as a quarterbacks coach, has coached guys like Jordan Love, the quarterback of the Packers. So he's been around a while. And I think he knows what Avery likes, what he maybe isn't quite as good at on some things. I think that's a win-win for Avery, but he's got all the skill in the world. I think one thing that will stand out for us, I think they have more help around him this year in terms of depth at running back, better in the receiving core with more size and speed. You hope it plays out that way. The real question for the team is what are they going to be in the offensive line? And that's probably the biggest part of the team right now. And I think they're going to be adequate or better than adequate. We'll see how that plays.
And that's kind of key. The Wildcats had to kind of dip into the transfer portal to kind of balance out that offensive line a little bit. How have those transfers seemed to mesh into the rest of the team as you've seen these practices play out?
Well, we've seen a little bit good and bad, and the bad, unfortunately, was a heat issue with one of the transfers, George Fitzpatrick of Ohio State. He will not play in the opener. Matter of fact, he'll probably miss a few weeks here, but he will be back at some point. Those other 3 guys have all done a nice job, and it's possible that 2 of them would start in the game against Iowa State. J.B. Nelson, a transfer from Penn State, is one. Terrence Enos, a transfer from Pitt, is another. The third is a sophomore by the name of Amos Talalele from USC, and he's just a sophomore. He's fighting a little bit of getting in better shape, but those other 2 guys could maybe start in the game, and I think they've done an adequate job. And one thing that a lot of people don't think about when they look at K-State's offensive line is their center is back, and he's a really fine player. Taylor Portier is in his 7th year. He missed 2 full years with ACLs, but he's back for another year. And then we've got a guy in Andrew Lane-Gang who is, I think, one of the most versatile kids we've had here lately, and we've had a lot of good offensive linemen play here. He literally can play anywhere from left tackle to right tackle.
Wow.
Doesn't mind if he starts or not. I mean, he's just the best kid you'll ever meet. He'll be a big factor with this team. So I think offensive line-wise, they could be good. But trust me, they'll be tested this weekend, no doubt.
Yeah, there's a pretty good Iowa State defense going up against them. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays there. Dylan Edwards is an interesting kind of back. He had a big bowl game. He's not the biggest guy, but then K-State's kind of known for not having the biggest running backs in the world in their past history that have done some really impressive things. What kind of year are you kind of expecting from a Dylan Edwards heading into this season?
Well, the things that I talked about with Avery, making his body better, adding some muscle mass, Dylan, you could probably just say ditto. Now, he didn't gain 18 pounds of muscle mass, but he gained some. And he's such an electric runner with the speed. And he can be such a big guy in the pass game where he's in the backfield, they send him in motion, or they line him up in the slot, or they line him wide. They're going to move him all over. And he's not DJ Giddens where you just ground and pound it with him 25 or 30 times. Totally different guy there. But you could also see two running backs. We've got another young player from Florida on our team, Joe Jackson. They call him Joe Jack, and he's going to be good. I think you'll see Dylan play everywhere, and they'll try to get him the ball as often as possible. But he is different than what we've seen here recently. But you're right, too, Tony, in that before a guy like DJ Giddens came along, we had a guy by the name of Deuce Vaughn who was pretty good. And a few years ago when I first started, we have a guy by the name of Darren Sproles who was pretty good. So, yeah, you can be 5'7" and play at K-State if you got that kind of skill, right? You can play anywhere, actually.
Exactly. Well, Wyatt, you've been there now 24 years, right? At K-State, being the voice of the Wildcats. Tell us, last year in the beginning part, end of October, early November, you guys were in serious consideration for a college football playoff berth.
Yeah.
What would it mean to the program, to the city of Manhattan, Kansas? What would it mean if this team were to take that next step forward this year under Avery Johnson's leadership, with the Dylan Edwards, with the coaching staff, and actually make the college football playoff?
Well, it'd be one of the coolest things ever. With K-State football history, when you go back pre-Bill Snyder, was not very good. As a matter of fact, if I'm being honest, they were the losingest program in the history of Division I. But it has been a lot different since Bill Snyder and now into Chris Kleiman. We went to 11 straight bowls at one point with Coach Snyder. We've won 3 Big 12 titles here. But the playoffs are kind of a newbie thing, at least from my perspective, since the BCS is gone and you've got more teams added in there. I think that's the next thing, right? And I think it's the goal of this group. I think they're excited about the possibilities. With all of that said, I know they have great respect for the other teams in the league, and this league's going to be difficult, but their chance to make it is as good as most, and that's all you can ask for, man. You stay healthy and go play.
Exactly, that you just want to have a shot. Just take the games coming one at a time. One of the things I looked up, Wyatt, was I wanted to know what the weather was like in early January in Manhattan, Kansas. It can be quite dicey in Manhattan. Yeah. So if you guys were to have a home playoff game, that would be pretty interesting up there.
Well, it would. It probably wouldn't be a whole lot different if you were talking about someplace like Columbus, Ohio, somewhere in Michigan or Indiana or whatever, that Nebraska. I've seen Kansas weather here for a long, long time. And you in November or January, you could have a 10 below day or a 60 or 65 degree day, and about anything in between, brother. So it's just going to be you're going to take what the good Lord gives you and be happy you're in, right? If we have to deal with a little bit of snow or ice, games people play, let's do it.
Both teams got to play in the same kind of weather, right, Wyatt? So
yes, sir. 100%.
No advantage for either one, basically. Let's talk a little bit more about Iowa State. What concerns you from their standpoint? What do they do really well that is going to be tough for the Wildcats come this weekend?
Not trying to be funny, but they are a lot like us. They are an ag school for the most part. They have a coach who is rock solid at everything he does. They have 2 really good coordinators. John Haycock, their defensive coordinator, is as good as most, and they don't beat themselves. They have a winning quarterback. He may not be the same athlete as Avery Johnson is, but with all respect, he does a lot of great things. This is his 3rd year as a starter, and he has a chance to throw for 3,000 yards this year. If he does that, he'll be the first player in Iowa State history to do that back-to-back-to-back seasons. Brock Purdy did it twice, and that guy is with the Niners. So it tells you that this cat is a winner, and he's not a spectacular athlete, but if it's, say, 3rd and 8 and he needs to make a play and there's maybe somebody that doesn't get open, he'll take off and go get you 8 or 9 or 10 or 12 yards. And that's I admire the kind of winner he is. His dad, Anthony, is a football coach and a former NFL guy, so it's all he's ever known, right? He's a winner, 100%.
the college football playoff being what it is, some teams going into last year kind of didn't really notice the Big 12 until they got to the playoff. And Arizona State really showed you what kind of league y'all have. The Big 12 is a tough league. How do you expect it to play out this year?
Well, I think you probably start with Arizona State, even though they lost Cam Scadaboo. I love their quarterback. He's another good one. They have more starters back than anybody in the league. But then you throw in Texas Tech with what they've done in the portal, Kansas State, Iowa State. Don't sleep on TCU or Baylor either. Right there, there's 6 teams. And KU thinks that they could be a part of it. And I understand why they think that way. Jalen Daniels has been around there a long time, and they've got a good club too. I think the league is really balanced, but the top 5 or 6 teams, if I'm being honest with you, Tony, there's not a ton of difference between all of them. They all could compete and be in Arlington in the first weekend in December.
You're going to be an interesting schedule point, for K-State. You go to Ireland. Iowa State is first up here. But then when you come back within that first 4 weeks, you've got a game against Army, which is never easy. And then you got to go to Arizona. What's the hope for that early part of the schedule for the Wildcats?
Handling getting back and having a short week starts with, because, North Dakota played Iowa State a year ago and played them to a 21-3 game. So that won't be easy. Then you have Army in here. They won 11 games with Jeff Monken last year, and then that Friday night game at Arizona. People may look at our schedule and think, well, after Iowa State, they got a little breather there. Not in my mind. I don't take any of those for granted, but I just don't. You got to be ready to play. We clubbed Arizona here a year ago at home. But being there on a Friday night with Noah Fafita as their quarterback and that place packed, I think you better take it seriously. So every game is going to be tough. One thing that they stressed when we were at Big 12 Media Days in Dallas, you'll love this, 43% of our league games last year were one-score games.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
It shows you how tight it is.
Before we let you go,
yeah.
Last question. Give me your keys. Give me a couple of keys to a victory Saturday against Iowa State.
Pretty simple, really. I've said this in a lot of interviews. I think the team that wins the line of scrimmage, or if that's a draw, then it comes down, in all honesty, to maybe which quarterback is the best. I don't want to oversimplify it, but those are the 2 things that I would touch on right away.
Perfect way to end it. Wyatt Thompson, he is the voice of the Kansas State Wildcats. Wyatt, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with us. Have some fun in Ireland. Enjoy the games on Saturday.
Thanks a lot, Tony. Great being with you, sir. I appreciate it.
We will be right back on Sports IQ after a brief timeout.
Life can be full of risks. One thing you shouldn't take a risk with ever is your family's health insurance. If you're self-employed or you now need affordable health insurance, you need to make this free call right now and see how the Health Insurance Helpline can help you get it. We specialize in helping the self-employed and people just like you that need affordable health insurance to get it. We have short and long-term health insurance plans, and some even cover dental, vision, and prescription drugs. Don't take a risk with your family's health insurance. It's not worth it. If you're self-employed or now need affordable health insurance, call right now and learn for free how to get it. Listen, affordable health insurance plans for everyone just like you are a free phone call away. So give us a shout right now.
800-373-8414. 800-373-8414. 800-373-8414. That's 800-373-8414.
If I was your mother and you had a drug problem, I'd grab you by the ear and make you call and get help. You can be in treatment tomorrow and start to get clean in 7 days. Follow Mom's advice and call the Detox and Treatment Helpline now. Write this number down.
877-927-3380. 877-927-3380. That's 877-927-3380.
Getting out of the military, I was missing this camaraderie.
It's frustrating when you try and talk to people that don't understand.
I still had the anger, I still had the addictions, but we didn't talk about that.
Came to a point where it's like, okay, I really need to talk to somebody about this.
Family more or less encouraged me, go to the VA.
It's okay to go get help. It's okay to talk to people because it takes true strength to ask for help.
Hear veterans' real stories of strength and recovery at MakeTheConnection.net.
All right, little college football news in the back half of the hour continues right now. Producer Tony is on as we continue our countdown of the top 25. You had Florida at 11, Illinois at 10 yesterday. Today, we're talking team number 9. Who you got, Tony?
Yeah, we are inside the top 10, Larry, and this is where I have slated the Alabama Crimson Tide. You know, we've talked about it a lot. You never want to be the guy that follows the legend. Well, Kalen DeBoer is the guy that followed the legend, Nick Saban. You know, and last year wasn't a disaster by probably 98% of the team standards in the FBS. Bama went 9-4, was in a running for a playoff berth. But when you're 9-4 with a bowl game loss at Bama, people start to get a little edgy, let's just say. Yeah. You know, DeBoer's going to have to lean on that defense a little more this year. They are talented. Man, there's 4- and 5-star talent, all positions over there. Yeah, there might not be a Will Anderson in this group just yet, but one of these guys is going to be in that talk once the season get over. And if they can stop the run a little better than they did last year, they'll be okay. They're going to be a top 10 team again.
You know, we were talking with Joe Gaither, who follows the Crimson Tide, earlier on the show just a few days ago, and he was talking about, again, no Jalen Milroe at quarterback. He's, off to the next level. Alabama has their new guy coming in right now, but it didn't seem like he was very concerned. Again, because even though Saban isn't there and DeBoer is in, Alabama just reloads. I mean, they just find a way to get it done, and they feel like this will be the same thing this year.
Well, yeah, the offense is going to hopefully be better than last year. Ty Simpson, he was a big-time recruit, right? He was a top 25 player when he came to Alabama. He's been in the program for a couple of years, and he's going to get his first career start when the Tide travel to Florida State next weekend. But he has an offensive line that is massive. They average like 320 pounds across the front, and like most of them are 6'3" or better. So they are huge up front. Larry, the goal is going to be really simple for Alabama. Last year, they were 7-0 when they made it to 400 yards of total offense in a game.
Wow.
When they didn't make 400 yards, they were 2-4. Get to 400 yards, they're going to be something to handle. They have 4 road games at Georgia, Auburn, at South Carolina, and at FSU. That's it, just the 4 road games. Look, you go 2-2 in those 4, you're looking at 10-2 and a definite return to the CFP. Now go 1-3 in those 4 games, and you might see Kalen DeBoer ordering a moving van in the middle of the night.
Yeah. And we talked about that before. We would hate for this guy to have, back-to-back, not 9-win seasons, and it's a situation like you're at Tennessee or Ohio State. They're kicking you out. So hopefully that's not the case. So Alabama at number 9. Let's go to number 8 in the poll.
Now, the reason I went number 8 with the Miami Hurricanes was simply because of the schedule and playing in the ACC, right? They're a good team. They're going to have a lot of pieces in there. Once again, the head coach out there hit the transfer portal hard, right? They went after it big time. But Mario Cristobal is the head coach. He gives me pause. Larry, we've been talking. I really like coaches who seem to get the most out of their players. I'm still not sold on Mario Cristobal getting the most out of his players, right? We're going to have to see what he can do over there in Miami.
Yeah. And there's a program right now, like you said. Fortunately, they do play in the ACC where a little easier. Look, of the 4 power conferences, they're the weakest in football. And to be honest, the weakest in basketball too right now of those 4. And so that's the thing, not taking nothing away from these other programs trying their very best. It just is what it is. And, when you get past Clemson, it's wide open. It does feel like Miami is positioned, at least, to be right there as the second best team in the league.
Yeah, they've got a lot of experience. They've got a lot of experience in the trenches. Both of their lines are experienced. Some have transfers in it. Look, Cristobal went to the portal hard again. He's done it each time. The biggest portal addition was the $4 million man, Carson Beck, coming over from Georgia. Now, we'll find out, was his less than stellar play at UGA the result of Georgia receivers not being able to hold on to the ball, or was it his own issues early on in his inaccuracy that led them to not holding on to the ball? There's different thoughts about that among Georgia fans as to what the big reason was. But he is going to need to step up. Cam Ward led Miami and had the number 1 ranked offense in the country, led to Cam being the number 1 draft pick. But there were just too many defensive lapses and some really odd play calls that derailed the Canes season last year. If they can fix that, they have a shot to play for the ACC title. This is a team that should win 10 or 11 games. They got a couple of tough games early. They're going to play Miami. They're going to play Florida and Notre Dame. They get Notre Dame at home first week of the season. So we'll know about Miami early on. If they fall flat in those big games, it might be a long year. If not, then this is a team that should be in the college football playoff.
Yeah, well said. Okay, so Miami is at number 8. We'll continue our countdown tomorrow. Up next is our moment of awe.
Fans of big sports radio and sports spectacular podcasts have a new home on the Chief Sports Network. Find your favorite programs and content all in one place by downloading the Chief Sports app in your mobile device. Created in South Carolina, the Chief Sports Network is the home of an expanding network of live and podcast format programming. It is also the home of one of the leading national college football podcasts, JC and Morgan, hosted by ESPN's Mike Morgan and 24/7 Sports' JC Sherbert. Download the Chief Sports app for free and find all of your favorite programming under one easy umbrella. Thanks to all of our markets for your loyal support of Big Sports Radio and our Sports Spectacular podcast, and we look forward to connecting with you anywhere in the world on the Chief Sports app.
Okay, time now for a moment of awe. And we go back to last night, and the South Carolina Little League team down 6-1 in the final inning, but they score 6 to get the win and keep hope alive for a U.S. championship. 7-6, the team from just outside Columbia, showing all kinds of grit. We love it. Great comeback. We talked about watching WNBA. Watch the Little League World Series as well. These final few games, it is just great drama and great athletes competing on the highest level. And that's our moment of awe. Hey, we appreciate our guests stopping by, Scott Pianowski and Wyatt Thompson. Appreciate you as well. It's a Sports IQ. One more day to go until the weekend, and we'll be back tomorrow. We'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.